The strange job. Offer Zirak never thought babysitting would be part of his life. He was a transporter on the planet Virelia, moving cargo between cities. He was used to quiet nights, routine work, and no trouble. But that changed when his communicator rang late one evening. It was his neighbor, a tall, green-skinned merchant named Vosik. Vosik spoke quickly, almost out of breath. "Zirak, I need a favor," he said. "It's about the human child we are fostering." Zirak frowned. A human child? Here? Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most Virelians had only seen them in holovids or news feeds, Vosik continued. "We have an emergency trip tonight, my partner and I. We can't leave the child alone, and no one else will take the job." Zirak hesitated. He didn't know anything about human children. From what he had heard, they were small, fragile, and needed constant care. It didn't sound like something he wanted to do, but Vosik was a good neighbor. And the pay he was offering was more than Zirak earned in a week. "All you have to do," Vosik added, "is keep him in the house until we return, follow the rules we give you, and make sure he's safe." Simple enough, Zirak thought. He finally agreed. "All right, I'll do it." The house was on the far side of the city, built in the traditional Virelian style with curved walls and high glowing windows. The air smelled faintly of the purple ivy that grew around the entrance. Vosik met him at the door with a nervous smile. Beside him stood a smaller, softer-looking alien, his partner Mira. Both seemed anxious to leave, but before they did, Mira handed Zirak a folded piece of paper. "These are the rules," she said seriously. Zirak unfolded the note and read them. "Never let Eli near the basement. Do not allow him outside after sunset. If Eli says they are here, hide immediately." Zirak looked up, puzzled. "What is this? A joke?" Mira shook her head. "It's for your safety and his." She glanced toward the hallway, and Zirak followed her gaze. A small boy stood there, watching them silently. He had short brown hair, pale skin, and curious eyes that seemed too old for his age. "This is Eli," Mira said softly. "He understands more than you think." Eli gave a small wave but didn't smile. There was something unsettling about the way he stared at Zirak. As if measuring him, Vosik and Mira left quickly, disappearing into the night air. The door closed with a quiet hiss, leaving Zirak alone with the human child. For a few moments there was silence. Zirak cleared his throat. "All right, Eli, I guess it's just you and me tonight." Eli didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the living room and sat in the corner chair. Staring out the window at the darkening sky, Zirak tried to make conversation. "So, do you like games? Hollow stories? Food?" Eli shook his head, still looking outside. "Are you waiting for someone?" Zirak asked, half joking. Eli finally spoke, his voice calm but strange. "They're coming for me." The words made Zirak pause. "Who's coming?" he asked. Eli didn't look at him. "You'll see." A faint hum came from somewhere in the distance. At first, Zirak thought it was a ship passing over the city, but it grew louder, sharper, almost like a buzzing inside his skull. He glanced at the window. The street outside was empty. Still, the hum continued, pulsing in a slow rhythm. Zirak tried to brush it off. "Probably just a power relay," he muttered. But then Eli turned toward him, eyes wide. "They are here," the boy whispered. Something cold twisted in Zirak's stomach. The third rule flashed in his mind. If Eli says they are here, hide immediately. A loud knocking sound suddenly echoed through the walls. 3 sharp bangs that didn't sound mechanical. It wasn't coming from the front door, it seemed. To be inside the house, moving from room to room, Zirak's instincts as a transporter told him to check the source. But the note's warning echoed louder in his thoughts. Eli stood up slowly and walked toward the hallway. "Where are you going?" Zirak asked quickly. "To the basement," Eli replied. Without turning back, Zirak stepped forward. "No. The first rule says—" Before he could finish, the lights flickered. The humming grew into a deep vibration that made the floorboards tremble. Somewhere beneath them, from the direction of the basement, a soft glow began to leak through the cracks in the floor. Eli looked over his shoulder at Xerox, his expression calm and strange. "If you want to live, don't follow me," the boy said, and then disappeared down the basement steps. Xerox stood frozen in the hallway. The knocking sound stopped. The house was silent again, except for the faint sound of the basement door clicking shut. Rules of babysitting. A human Xerox stood frozen in the hallway. The basement door shut tight in front of him. The glow under the floorboards had faded, but the air still felt heavy, like the room itself was holding its breath. He glanced at the crumpled piece of paper in his hand. 3 rules, he thought, and realized he had already broken the first one. Eli had gone to the basement, and Xerox had let it happen. But something told him the real danger wasn't in letting the boy go. It was in following him. He walked to the kitchen to distract himself. That's when he noticed something strange, a set of small metal objects laid out neatly on the table. They looked like toys at first, until one of them moved on its own, spinning and clicking in the dim light. Xerox frowned. "What in the stars?" Before he could touch them, a voice spoke from behind. "Don't," Eli said, standing in the doorway. The boy's eyes were different now, brighter, almost glowing faintly. "They're not toys," he added, walking over to cover them with a cloth. "They're messages." "Messages from who?" Xerox asked. Eli didn't answer. Instead, he looked out the window again, scanning the dark street. "They're getting closer," the boy whispered, almost to himself. Xerox felt a cold shiver run up his spine. The second rule, do not allow him outside after sunset, suddenly made a lot more sense. He locked the door, but Eli just shook his head. "That won't stop them," he said. "They're not here for the door." "They're here for me." Before Xerox could reply, the humming sound returned, louder this time. The walls vibrated and a shadow passed over the windows. Something was flying low above the house. Xerox grabbed Eli's arm. "All right, kid. Enough of the creepy talk. What's going on?" Eli turned to face him fully for the first time. His voice was steady, too steady for a child. "If you follow the rules, we both live. If you don't, you'll find out what happens." The lights flickered again, and this time a sound like claws scratching across metal came from the roof. Xerox looked up. The ceiling above them groaned, dust falling from the beams. Something heavy was moving slowly, deliberately, across the top of the house. He reached for his comm to call Vosik. No signal, just a faint static that somehow matched the rhythm of the humming outside. It wasn't random interference. It felt like someone or something was listening. Eli pulled a chair into the center of the room and sat down. "You should sit, too," he said. "It will make it easier when they try to look inside your mind." Xerox stared at him. "Inside my what?" he asked. But before Eli could answer, 3 sharp knocks echoed through the living room wall. From inside the wall, the first incident. The 3 knocks inside the wall stopped. Silence filled the room, but it wasn't a normal silence. It felt heavy, like the air itself was pressing against Xerox's skin. Eli didn't move. He sat perfectly still in the chair, his eyes fixed on the far corner of the room. Xerox followed his gaze, but there was nothing there. At least at first. Then the corner shifted. It was like the wall bent slightly inward, not breaking, just bending. The shadows twisted, pulling into a shape. Tall, thin, and wrong. It wasn't a creature made of flesh. It was made of darkness itself. Xerox took a step back, his heartbeat loud in his ears. "What is that?" he whispered. Eli's voice was calm, almost bored. "That's one of them," he said. "But it's not really here. It's testing the room, trying to see where it can enter." Before Zarak could reply, the bent walls snapped back into shape. The shadow vanished, but the room didn't feel right anymore. The furniture seemed slightly out of place, the doorway to the kitchen looked narrower, and the ceiling felt lower. Zarak rubbed his eyes. Maybe it was his imagination. But when he looked again, the front door was no longer on the wall where it had always been. It was now on the opposite side of the living room. He blinked hard. "Okay, that's not normal," he muttered. Eli finally stood up. "They're trying to confuse you," the boy said. "They changed the house so you lose your way. If you open the wrong door, you won't be in this world anymore." Zarak's instincts screamed to get out. But the second rule, do not allow him outside after sunset, kept him frozen, if going outside was worse than this. What in the stars was waiting out there? Then the sound came, a low, drawn-out scraping, like metal dragged across glass. It came from the hallway, but when Zarak looked, the hallway wasn't a hallway anymore. It was a long, narrow tunnel. Glowing faintly at the far end, Eli tilted his head. "They've opened a path," he said. "But it's not for you. It's for me." Zarak grabbed his arm. "Not happening, kid." Eli didn't resist. Instead, he smiled faintly. "You think you're protecting me," he said softly. "But soon you'll see. I'm the one protecting you." At that moment, the basement door creaked open on its own. A faint golden light spilled out, and from the darkness below, something whispered Zarak's name. "Dangerous visitors." The whisper from the basement was not like a voice from a throat. It was layered, like many voices speaking together in different tones. Some high, some low, all saying one thing, Zarak's name. He felt the hair on his arms rise. The golden light from the basement seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat, and then from outside came a deep thud. Not at the door, not on the walls, but above. Something heavy had landed on the roof. Eli didn't move toward the sound. Instead, he walked calmly to the center of the room and picked up one of the strange metal objects from under the cloth. It was small, round, and had thin antennae like an insect. When he touched it, it unfolded with a soft click, glowing faint blue. "Stay behind me," Eli said, his voice calm. Zarak blinked. "Kid, they're on the roof." "I know," Eli cut in. "And now they're going to come inside." The ceiling above them groaned. Small cracks spread across the plaster, and then, without breaking, the surface softened. It rippled like liquid. Two long black arms reached down. Through it, clawed fingers scraping at the air, searching, Zarak grabbed a chair and swung at one of the arms. The chair passed through like smoke. The claws didn't even react. But when Eli raised the glowing device, the arms froze. The claws curled back, like they'd been burned. A strange screeching sound filled the room. "They can't touch human tech," Eli said simply. "These things, they're scared of it." Before Zarak could process that, more figures appeared at the window. Tall shapes in armored suits, their helmets smooth and black. No eyes, no mouths, just blank surfaces reflecting the glow of Eli's device. One of them pressed a hand to the glass. The surface turned liquid, just like the ceiling. They began stepping through, but the moment their boots touched the floor, the device in Eli's hand emitted a low hum. The intruders jerked back like invisible hooks had yanked them. One fell against the wall, armor sparking with blue static. Another stumbled and vanished through the warped window like it had been sucked out. Zarak stared. "What are you?" he asked, before he could stop himself. Eli gave a small shrug, eyes still locked on the roof. "I told you. I'm a human," he said, "but not the kind you've met before." Above them, the thudding stopped. The weight lifted from the roof. The house seemed to settle again, only the faint hum of Eli's device remained. Then Eli turned it off. The blue light faded, and in the silence that followed, Zarak realized something important. The intruders hadn't failed to take Eli. They had decided to leave, flight through the night. The air in the house was still, too still. Zirek's instincts told him the quiet wasn't safety. It was a trap. Eli was already moving toward the back door. "We can't stay," the boy said. "They'll try again. But next time they'll bring something worse." Zirek followed, but when Eli pulled the door open, the street outside was gone. In its place was a wide, glowing desert under a purple sky. Strange spires of crystal rose in the distance, and far off, dark shapes moved slowly toward them. Zirek froze. "That's not the street." Eli nodded. "They've folded space around the house. It's not on Viralia anymore." Before Zirek could speak, the walls behind them began to close in, not like doors or panels. They bent and stretched, as if the house was made of soft clay. Every second, the space got smaller, and from the corners, thin, black tendrils slid out, curling toward them. "Move!" Eli said sharply, grabbing Zirek's arm. They ran back into the living room, but now it wasn't the living room. It was a long metal corridor. The floor vibrated under their feet, and strange symbols glowed. Faintly on the walls, somewhere ahead, a mechanical heartbeat thumped in slow rhythm. "They're trying to trap us in a loop," Eli said, not even out of breath. "If we keep moving forward, we'll end up back where we started. The only way out is down." They reached a hatch in the floor, one that Zirek swore had never been there before. Without hesitation, Eli dropped to his knees and pressed his palm against it. The hatch hissed open, revealing a steep ladder leading into darkness. Zirek peered down. "What's in there?" Eli looked at him with a faint smile. "Something they can't control." They climbed down quickly, the hatch sealing above them. The air below was cooler, and when Zirek's eyes adjusted, he saw they were in a narrow tunnel lined with old pipes and cables. The smell of dust and oil filled his lungs. From above came a muffled, distorted roar. Not like an animal, not like a machine. Something between the two. The sound faded as they moved deeper underground. After several minutes, the tunnel widened. Into a cavern lit by small pools of glowing water, Zirek turned to Eli. "Where does this lead?" "To the old cargo tunnels under the city," Eli said. "From there, we can lose them. If we're fast." Zirek's mind was racing. He had taken a simple babysitting job. Now he was running through a reality-bending nightmare with a child who clearly knew more than he said. Eli stopped suddenly. "They're here," he whispered. Zirek looked back. At the far end of the tunnel, two figures had stepped into the glow. Their armor shimmered like liquid, and their footsteps made no sound. Eli's hand went to his pocket. When it came out, he was holding something new, a small silver disc, no bigger than a coin. He pressed it to the tunnel wall, and the rock rippled like water, opening a narrow passage. "In here," Eli said. Zirek hesitated, but the silent figures were getting closer. He stepped through, the rock sealed behind them, and they were swallowed by total darkness. The truth about Eli, the darkness around them wasn't empty. It felt thick, like standing inside smoke that refused to move. Zirek could barely see Eli's outline, only the faint glint of the boy's eyes as he spoke. "They can't follow us." "Here," Eli said. "Why not?" Zirek asked, his voice low. Eli stepped forward and the darkness moved with him. "Because this place is human-made," he said simply. Zirek frowned. "Human-made? On Viralia? That's impossible. Humans have never—" "Yes, they have," Eli interrupted. "They've been here for longer than your people know. They just made sure you forgot." Something about his tone made Zirek's stomach tighten. He had seen humans before, but always as traders, diplomats, or wanderers, never as builders of secret tunnels, never as— This Eli kept walking. As he moved, faint lights flickered on along the tunnel walls, not like lamps, but patterns of tiny glowing dots. They shifted and pulsed, forming shapes that looked almost alive. "This is part of an old human project," Eli continued. They wanted to understand the galaxy, not just maps and stars, but the things living between them, the things that don't like to be seen. Zirac remembered the shadow from the corner of the room, the bending walls, the liquid ceiling. "You mean those things chasing us?" he asked. Eli shook his head. "They're just one kind. There are others much worse, and humans. We're the only species that can hurt them." Zirac stared at him. "Why?" Eli's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped lower. "Because we're not from here." The words hung in the air. Not from here, not from this planet, this system, maybe not from this galaxy at all. Zirac wanted to ask more, but the tunnel suddenly trembled. Small pieces of dust fell from the ceiling. The glowing patterns along the walls shifted to a deep red. Eli glanced around, his calm cracking for the first time. "They found a way in," he said. "We need to move." They broke into a run. The darkness ahead of them thinned, revealing a huge steel door with an old human symbol stamped on it, two crossed lines inside a circle. Eli pressed his palm against the symbol. The door groaned and began to slide. Open, on the other side, was a vast underground chamber. Old human machines slept in the shadows. Tall, silent towers of black metal stretched up into the darkness above. "This is why they want me," Eli said, stepping inside. "I can wake them." The human strike. The steel door shut behind them with a deep clang. The air in the chamber was cold, sharp, and heavy. Every step Zirac took echoed into the darkness. The tall black towers around them seemed to hum. Like something inside was listening, Eli walked straight to the center of the room. On the floor was a circular platform covered in dust. He wiped, part of it clean with his sleeve. Beneath the dirt was the same crossed-line symbol as on the door. "This is the heart," he said. Zirac looked back toward the tunnel. He could hear it. A faint scraping, the sound of the intruders forcing their way in. "We don't have time for this, kid," Zirac said. Eli didn't look up. "That's why I'm starting now." He knelt and pressed both hands to the platform. The symbol flared to life, bright, white light spilling into the room. The towers began to shift, their surfaces peeling open like metal flowers. Inside each one, something moved. Not machines, not creatures, something between both. Shapes that flickered between solid and liquid. Eyes that opened and closed in impossible places. The intruders arrived at the door. Their armor shimmered, weapons glowing. One of them stepped forward and froze. The moment its gaze met the shapes inside the towers, its weapon powered down. On its own, another tried to step back, but the door behind them sealed shut with a scream of metal. Zirac felt his skin crawl. The light in the chamber didn't just shine, it bent space. The air rippled, and for a moment he saw stars where the floor should be, an ocean where the ceiling had been. He stumbled back, clutching his head. "What? What is this?" Eli stood, his eyes glowing with the same white light. "This is human tech," he said, his voice echoing strangely. "It doesn't destroy, it changes." The intruders dropped their weapons. One fell to its knees, the other backed away, their blank helmets trembling as if in fear. The shapes from the towers leaned forward. No sound, no attack, just watching. And somehow, that was worse than any weapon. "They know," Eli said softly. "They can't win against what they don't understand." The intruders vanished, not ran, not teleported, simply blinked out of existence. The light faded, the towers sealed. Themselves again, only the faint hum remained. Eli turned to Zirac, his expression almost normal again. "You see now," he said. "Humans aren't dangerous because we're strong. We're dangerous because we can change the rules." Zirac didn't answer. Somewhere deep inside, he knew he would never look. At humans the same way again, Eli brushed dust off his clothes and walked toward the far exit. "Come on," he said. "The night's not over yet."